Good morning, friends. So, a common thing, I just am waking up, and a common thing when I just wake up for me is like an overwhelming feeling of, um, like, oh no, something's really wrong, or um, like a gripping in my chest of really a nervous feeling of like panicky. And I think a lot of people experience this. And I think part of it can be, the accumulation of the feelings that haven't been supported or met throughout all of the years. And we go into sleep and we kind of leave them for a little while. And then we wake up and our dear mind wants to make sure to get back to the hard work of figuring all of it out. So I'm reading Letting Go by David Hawkins, and it talks about this mechanism of letting go. And I just wanted to share like a real time moment of how I'm experiencing that and interacting with that. So this feeling that I'm having is very much in my chest, and it feels like nervousness. And the thoughts that are trying to explain it are the thoughts about my upcoming move, that I'm having thoughts that I'm not going to be able to get everything packed and moved. Um, and that I'm also having thoughts that like it's a bad idea to move, it's not going to be good to move, that the new place is not going to be okay, that it's a bad decision, that my kid's not going to be happy, that we're not going to like it, that it's not a good house, that we're going to be lonely and cut off from community because we've lived here in this beautiful community for 10 years. So those are all the thoughts that are trying to explain the feeling. And the the idea that our thoughts are just explaining the feeling is from how I learned it in DBT, but I also learned it in this book. So it's nice to understand what the thoughts come from, because a lot of us think it's the thoughts that's the root cause, but it's really the feeling. So it says, focus on the feeling, not the thoughts. Thoughts are endless and self-reinforcing, and they only breed more thoughts. Thoughts are merely rationalizations of the mind to try and explain the presence of the feeling. The real reason for the feeling is the accumulated pressure behind the feeling that is forcing it to come up in the moment. The thoughts or external events are only an excuse made up by the mind. So that's why the question that I offer to people to begin practicing every day is, how is my body feeling? Because a lot of us use emotion words like anxiety or stressed to explain our thoughts rather than our emotion feeling state in the body. So the process of letting go is focused more on, he doesn't explain it as feeling the physical sensations, but I think it helps me to make more sense of it and sort out the emotion from the thoughts. So letting go involves being aware of a feeling, letting it come up, staying with it, and letting it run its course without wanting to make it different or do anything about it. Simply let the feeling be there and focus on letting out the energy behind it. So energy in motion, emotion, energy in motion. So a lot of that has to do with the nervous system's process. So at the basis of all emotion is fear related to survival. And he says all feelings are merely survival programs that the mind believes are necessary. The letting go technique undoes the programs progressively. So a lot of us have these build up energies that have been related to the survival, the fear of survival or the need for survival, really. Because we don't have to fear surviving if we don't think we need to survive, but the idea that we need to survive, which has been programmed into our DNA and is present in the mechanism of the nervous system, the vagus nerve specifically, is built to keep us surviving. So the idea that we need to survive is programmed in there and causes the energy that helps us survive to be moving constantly through our body. And for a lot of us, we have suppressed that energy and not allowed it to move through our bodies because of the way that our parents and society interacted with us. So let's say a little baby has the energy around the need for survival come up when they feel hunger. Okay, so they start crying. And then the adult calms them and says, shh, 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 stop crying, it's not time to eat yet, okay? And the baby does not get the food, so the survival need is not met, but the energy is pushed back in. So that energy is going to stay inside and not be processed through, and the suppressed energy is going to push up like a pressure cooker, and the steam that comes out of that pressure cooker is the thoughts. So the baby might start having the thoughts, there's something wrong with me, people don't love me, I'm never going to be taken care of, my hunger doesn't matter, and so on and so forth. These are bad people, I'm bad. And over time, with millions and millions of these experiences of that energy being kept in, that pressure cooker is going to let out that steam of those thoughts. And then what's wild about thoughts is that thoughts are self-reinforcing. So they are like a snowball, whereas emotions are like a wave, right? So if the vagus nerve is allowed to process those emotions, that energy and if the energy is allowed to be in motion and process through with the mechanism of the vagus nerve, like through movement and expression, assertive communication, then the emotion will only last about, there was a Harvard study that says it only lasts about 90 seconds to come up like a wave and then rise back down. It's the thoughts that can last for the rest of our life, right? So the ideas here is to allow for the feeling, the emotion. And he does a really nice job of explaining how the hardest part really is the fear of emotions, because through our society, again, many of us have been taught that the emotions are dangerous. So we have a fear of emotions. So let's see. As you begin the process, you will notice that you have fear and guilt over having feelings. There will be resistance to feelings in general. To let feelings come up, it is easier to let go of the reaction to having the feelings in the first place. A fear of fear itself is a prime example of this. Let go of the fear or guilt that you have about the feeling first, then let go of the feeling itself. So he says, when letting go, ignore all thoughts. Now, that is not an easy task to do. So my version of this is it says focus on the feeling itself, not the thoughts. So my version is to bring ourselves back and back to the physical sensations, and as we do so, to support ourselves with nervous system exercises. So the other thing that I want to say is, for many of us, these the pressure cooker is so tight because we have not done this for so long, and many of us feel scared that if we open up to the feelings, it's going to be a Pandora's box situation and it's never going to end, which is valid, because if there's a lot of pressure, then it might be a really big release. So in DBT, they teach about something called the one drop, and you give yourself, like, you can set a timer for 1 minute, let's say. And you can say, I'm going to notice and feel some of my emotions. And it may just be, I'm going to notice and feel that I feel resistant to or scared of or upset about my emotions for just 1 minute. And when that timer goes off, then you go ahead and do some distress tolerance activities, and you bring yourself out of it, and you give yourself little bits over time, and you kind of work your way up to this, because this can be overwhelming. Another time to do these things is with a trusted coach or counselor, or in a trusted group, spiritual community. This is something that is, I think part of the sharing in 12-step groups is to be with the feeling. Sometimes those 12-step group sharing times can reinforce us staying stuck on the thoughts. So that one's a little tricky, but there are different places where people are supported in touching in with their emotions. Another place where people experience the allowance of touching in with their emotions is with movies and other types of media, like music. Putting on one sad song and sitting with the feeling of the sadness, or watching one sad movie and sitting with the feelings of the sadness can be a release. In indigenous cultures, this is really facilitated and ritualized and reinforced because weekly people are allowed to be in environments where very high emotion is celebrated. So you may have grief rituals around people in the community dying, where there's a lot of wailing and screaming and crying and big physical movement. You may have ritual dance or performance, or ceremonies or services where there's big dancing, big crying, big screaming. And so these communities understood that facilitating this for the people and being able to do it in community was even more celebrated. But a lot of us now have been taught not to have big expressive emotions in front of others. So, all of that to say, this explains why we have a lot of built up emotions, a lot of pressure, a lot of energy in the body that hasn't been able to be in motion and move through us. So, for example, this morning, how I'm going to interact with this sensation in my chest is I'm going to do my first question, right, which is this feel more mobilized or immobilized, which will help me understand which exercise to choose. So this feels like a very mobilized energy. I've definitely, when I ask that question, do you feel like running, screaming, and smashing things? I do. When I ask that question, do you feel like hiding in a cave? I feel like no, because I'm aware that the move is going to happen. So I've gotten to the point where up until probably yesterday, I was like, I can't face it yet. I was doing more immobilized. And then yesterday I really faced that it's happening, and the only one who's going to pack up this house is me. And so I brought the boxes upstairs, and I packed my first box yesterday, which I think in a way brought up a lot of this grief and fear. So I'm now at the mobilize. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself a little bit of rocking, and I'm just going to notice the chest sensation. It's about right here. It feels a little bit like a burning sensation. So this is the next thing I'm going to do. I'm going to really describe the sensation. It feels like a little like acid refluxy, which makes sense. So that's like a vomiting, like something needs to come out. It does feel like I'm gonna throw up the more I describe it. So sometimes when we really notice and acknowledge it, it can get a little bit bigger. So now I'm really feeling it in my stomach, and I feel nauseous, and I feel, yeah, like I wanna like move, cringe. So there's some disgusting feeling, and we don't know if this is actually, related to moving at all. But we know that the thought about moving is what I came up with to explain this. And different emotions have, we attach thought groups to different emotions, but this could be from something that an ancestor experienced 7 generations ago that was never processed through, that's still in my DNA. So I'm feeling it. It's now out into my arms, and it's still the feeling of like wanting to throw up. If I were to give it a color, it has definitely like a burnt orange. If I were to give it a texture, it's like a like when I take my vitamins in the morning, it makes me gag. It's that feeling. Texture is it's like a crushed velvet, which kind of always weirded me out. Temperature slightly warm. If it were to be an animal, actually we saw a possum last night that like kind of made me grossed out. It was like disoriented from a big storm we had. So it definitely has that like matted fur, like awkward movement, like creepy tail. Yeah, it's definitely a grossed out feeling. It's like a little weird stumbling possum. Ugh. Often when I'm meditating and quiet, I'll get these shakes and like convulse, like the throw up movement, like dry heaves. This is that. So when the thought comes back and is like, well, it's just because of the move, and you know how to move and you can move, I'm just going to be like, I know, but I don't need reassurance right now. I'm allowing this. I'm noticing it. So I'm allowing myself to move. See, it's making me squint too. That's interesting. Squinting. So if you notice this observation, like the noticing and the curiosity and the naming of the different qualities, that's allowing me to not be the emotion, but to notice the emotion, observe and aware of the emotion. So I am not the emotion, I am the observer. If you want to do this alone, then you won't have to have people see you make all these weird things. Okay, it's starting to get lighter. And it's still in my stomach, but it's a little less. I can't actually feel it so much in my chest. I can feel it very much in my throat, though. Vocalization is also a really good mobilizer. So gargling, sighing, singing, chanting, screaming, doing that movement. Kids do all this stuff a lot. Little toddlers especially, you'll notice they're moving this stuff through. I feel it in my this shoulder area right now. This is a common place for me to have pain. When I was in labor, they taught me to do a lot of that kind of and that feels good right now. Smart. Okay, I'm noticing it has moved out of my stomach and out of my chest. It is mostly in this shoulder now. And I'm just also acknowledging as my thoughts come up, like, this is never going to end. When is this going to end? I have to get up and get my kid ready for school, right? I'm noticing the just, the thoughts. I'm just like, okay, I know you're trying to explain it. That makes sense. We're not trying to explain it right now, so I appreciate your efforts. I'm just being with the energy that's in motion in my body right now. So it's still primarily my shoulder, and I am, aware that I am going to transition to get my kiddo up. So I am going to let my body know, like, hey, thank you so much. I would like to spend more time with this energy. That yawn's a good indication that my vagus nerve is like, okay, thank you. I'm going to let my shoulder know that I'm going to come back, that I'm going to not forget it, and I'm going to set a a calendar reminder on my phone for a time when I can come back to it. That's going to communicate to that part that I respect it, and it's going to allow that energy to trust me that I am going to come back to it. So I have some time during my lunch break that I will put on my calendar. These yawns are my vagus nerve being like, thank you so much. So cool. I'm going to come back to it, and I'll spend some more time with it, and I'll do as much as I can for that time. And I, because I've done this process a lot, I trust myself to be able to switch gears when I need to. When I was new to it, I would set timers for like 1 minute, so that I could give myself the reassurance that we weren't going to have to stay in it for any longer than that. And I always allowed that if I could only do 10 seconds, then that was okay. First 5 years of my going into DBT and 12 steps and beginning to try to address my emotions, I just did 30 seconds at a time. Of all things in life, I only told myself, 12 step as a slogan, 1 day at a time, and that was way too much for me. So I allowed myself to just do 30 seconds of life at a time. So anyways, I hope that was helpful to see the letting go method, my version of it, my experience of it in action. I love you all so much, and I'll connect with you again soon.